Are you battling a giant? Welcome to the Daily Devo. I am Vince Miller. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 17, the epic chapter of 1 Samuel. I've titled this chapter, Battling Giants. Such an easy title to come up with. Now, the key verse of this chapter is, without a doubt, verse 45. Let me read it for you. Then David said to the Philistine, that is to Goliath, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." And this statement right here is a rallying cry of a sold-out, courageous man of God. That's what you're hearing here today. It's one of the most famous statements in all the Old Testament. And it's heard right in the middle of the most famous battle ever fought in the Old Testament. But, this is important. Here's the perspective we need to have of this chapter, that you need to have of this chapter. This story that we're about to read is about God. It's his battle, it's his victory, and it's his defeat of a giant. It's his battle, his victory, and his defeat of a giant. Now, most people wrongly conclude after reading the chapter that in our battle with our giants, we can be victorious if we simply muster up some courage and get in the fight. However, that is not a precise interpretation or application of the story, because that's not how David sees this moment or this battle. David sees this moment not as a battle between him and a giant, but between God and a giant. The start of this rallying cry right here is a hint of it, but as he continues, he's going to conclude with this statement in verse 47. It reads, "For the battle is the Lord's. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand." It's not their battle, it's God's battle, and he's going to hand them over. David has a perspective that no one in Israel seems to have, and many believers today get wrong. David is fully convinced of 6 truths in these 2 simple verses. Number 1, God is greater. Number 2, God has all authority. Number 3, God is the leader of great armies. Number 4, you, Goliath, have defied him. Number 5, God is going to battle with you. And number 6, God will give you into our hands. Once again, these truths are: God is greater, God has all authority, God is the leader of great armies, you have defied him, God is going to battle with you, and God will give you into our hands. From the very first moment David walked upon the battle to the final moment he actually lopped off, cut off Goliath's giant head, there was no doubt about his perspective. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he saw the situation differently than anyone else saw the situation then, and I think sometimes today. David understood that this was not a battle between him and a giant. It was a battle between a giant God and a mortal man who had defied God. Do you see that here? I mean, sometimes what we do is we like to read ourselves into God's story because we want to be the hero. We imagine ourselves as David. But the hero of the story is not David. It is God. David knows from the beginning of this battle to the end that God is going to fight this battle and he's going to be victorious, which is demonstrated by what he states before and after the battle. The problem is that most of the observers in the battle, and even readers today, fail to see the story this way. We want to read David and his skill and his courage into the story and make him the center of the story. But when we do this, we rob the divine truth and the application of this incredible victory. The point is this of this story is that God is a victorious God. That's the whole point of the story. He will have victory over those who oppose him, and sometimes he will use outrageous means to achieve this victory. This means that sometimes he will use us, which is outrageous, to accomplish this victory. But that doesn't mean at all that we are the heroes. It simply means that God stooped and condescended and reached down to possibly use us because maybe we were willing enough. You know, if you have an impossible battle before you today, maybe you need to examine that battle again. Do you see it as a battle between you and someone who is against you? Or do you see it as a battle between God and someone who is against God? These are 2 very different perspectives that lead to two very different results. If you actually take the time to play them out in your mind and compare them, you will see a vast difference between the motivation and the result of them each. Then your response should change, and so might the result. My advice to you today is let God be the hero of the story, and then the result for you will be much better. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else, and I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.